Now that Final Fantasy XVI has been out for a few weeks, we finally have more clarification from Yoshi P on whether or not the game will be getting DLC. Before we get into the news, if you guys could click the like button, subscribe, and smash that bell icon with a scarlet cyclone, that would be much appreciated. So leading up to the game's release, Yoshi P had stated that at the time of development, they had no plans to do any DLC for the game. But if reception from players was great and they showed an interest in the world of 16, then it would be something that they reconsidered. And thanks to an interview that was posted by Gamer Braves, we have a more clear answer on the future of DLC for 16. In the video, the host Juan asks Yoshi P about any future plans for DLC. Yoshi P responds by saying that while the story itself is 100% complete, he is now hearing feedback on how much players enjoyed the world of 16 and now want more. Because of that, they are currently thinking about their options for DLC and hope to announce something in the near future. I had speculated in a previous video that DLC for 16 could be announced at Tokyo Game Show. It seems rather early to announce it there, but it wouldn't have to be a big show of an announcement. You would just announce that DLC is currently in development, maybe include some new key art, and at least tell players who the content will focus on. Capcom did something relatively similar with the DLC announcement for Resident Evil Village. And if TGS is too soon, then the Game Awards is a great spot as well. We all know how much Jeff Keighley loves his exclusive reveals. I also agree with Yoshi that the story itself is complete, and I personally don't want any post-game DLC that continues the game's story, especially since there are still some gaps in the pasts of some of the game's characters. Unless, and that's a big unless, you maybe explore a new icon or two. Just gonna throw that one out there. But the question is, who would the DLC focus on? In my TGS speculation video, I proposed the idea of having the DLC focus on Cid, and in a recent interview with Kakuchopure, translation provided by Audrey, I hope I pronounced the name of that website correctly. I probably butchered it, so I apologize if I did. But Yoshi P also said that he would love to have DLC where you play as Cid. It's not a confirmation, but it's something he would really like to see. Without getting into spoilers, Cid has a very deep and rich backstory that you could mine for DLC content. You could focus partly on a younger Cid as he meets Benedicta. We could see the beginnings of their relationship and what led to their parting of ways and shift in personal ideologies. Seeing Cid find the hideaway and potentially having to clear it of enemies before making it a safe haven could provide for some interesting gameplay mechanics. Speaking of gameplay, we'd actually get to fight as Cid, wielding the power of Ramuh and potentially transforming into him for a one-off icon battle could really freshen up combat in both respects. There's also potential to include Torgal. As we know from the early hours of the game, Clive and Torgal are separated for a long period of time. In that time, we know that Cid comes across Torgal and trains him to become a hunter, fighter, and Valisthea's best boy. Seeing that companionship bloom would make for some really heartwarming stuff, and including Torgal means he would still accompany you in battle, so his gameplay mechanics wouldn't really need to change all that much. Now, talking about the future DLC for this game is exciting, but as players and content creators have pointed out, the game still has some technical issues, primarily in the game's performance mode. The frame rate in performance mode very rarely maintains a stable 60 frames per second. Whether I'm running through a small town or a wide open field, the frame rate drops from 60 to somewhere in the 40s. On the flip side of that, there are sections in the game where there are tons of particle effects going off. Thunder, lightning, and tornadoes happening, and big pieces of flying debris are crashing in front of Clive, and the frame rate never buckles and remains at 60. It's incredibly inconsistent and has me believing that performance mode probably wasn't intended to be a part of the game originally, but because so many people demanded it, they decided to include it before they could properly optimize it. It might not be a big problem for some people, but when a game includes a performance mode, I expect it to run in a stable condition. There's also the game's disappointingly easy difficulty. Even without the use of the timely accessories, combat doesn't feel as hard as it probably should, but I'll save most of my detailed criticism of the game's difficulty for a full review of Final Fantasy XVI in the coming weeks. Now with that being said, that is the video. Let me know in the comments down below. As far as DLC goes for 16, what is it that you would like to see? What character do you hope they focus on? Would you like them to introduce a new icon? Let me know down below. And before you go, make sure to check out my most recent videos where we talk about the ever-changing identity of Final Fantasy and what makes a Final Fantasy game a Final Fantasy game. And then there's also my video where we talk about the incredible music of Final Fantasy VII Remake. I am Curious Corduroy. I will see you guys in the next video. Please remember to always be excellent to one another.